Welcome to the February 5th, 2024 Committee of a Whole meeting. We have two items on the agenda this evening. The first item on the agenda is a accompanying resolution from Mayor Haralampalam confirming the appointment of Jonathan Harding to the position of Corporation Counsel. That was the item 3.1 on the January 22nd, 2024 agenda. The rules of the meeting, we will invite the nominees to come in front of us. Is going to be allowed to make a presentation. Each council person will have two questions in the first round, and then thereafter, once all the council members are finished asking their questions, then they, the second round, they can continue with their questions. Mr. Harding, please join us. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Madam President. How are you?
Good. Is your mic on?
I don't know. The light is on. Can you hear me?
Is this mic? Maybe.
Hello?
Okay, they're good.
Okay. Madam President and members of the esteemed Hartford Court of Common Council, I'm very honored to be with all of you this evening as a nominee for Corporation Counsel for the City of Hartford. I was obviously overjoyed for the opportunity to serve the city in this capacity when I was nominated, and I'm tremendously grateful for this opportunity. For the last month, I've been serving as the acting Corporation Counsel, which has been a very rewarding and incredible month. I've learned a great deal about the city, and I've learned that I have a lot more to learn. It's going to be a great learning experience for me, and I'm really excited for the challenges that lie ahead and to continue serving the city in this capacity. And I thank you all for your consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will, is everybody hearing well?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's a little bit better. Yeah, we're having a little bit of time. All right, so who would like to start the questioning? Yep, we'll go this way. We'll start with you, Minority Leader.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
All right, Brother Harding, congratulations. Well, shouldn't say congratulations yet, but thank you so much for acting as Director of Corporation Counsel so far. Since it's a public meeting, I thought it'd be great to inform the public. Could you explain to the public what Corporation Counsel does in your own words?
Sure. The Corporation Counsel acts as the lead attorney for the City of Hartford and runs basically the law department or the legal department for the City of Hartford, addressing a number of issues, anything from HR to contract work, litigation, and also just general counseling and risk management from a legal perspective for the City of Hartford, all of its departments, including the Mayor's Office, Council, Board of Education, and all of the other subdivisions and boards and commissions of the city.
You know, I do have to apologize. I did neglect to mention that this is a hybrid meeting, and we do have Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, and we also have Councilwoman Rossetti. I'm sorry? Rosado. I'm sorry. You're right with me, Rosado. I believe I don't see anybody else with us. Yeah. So I just wanted to let you know that the other council members have joined the meeting.
Excellent.
We were starting, Josh, from your side around. Each person have two questions the first round.
Thanks, and sorry I was a hair late.
No worries, Councilman.
I mean, we've talked before, but I guess I'm interested to know if you see ways that the Office of Corporation Counsel could do things it hasn't maybe done, steps the city could take legally to advance other issues. Right now, there's been a lot of talk about housing, and there, for example, we have a lot of talk about how do we get some of the big landlords who are not treating our folks well and are not complying with our rules, how do we really push them? And I guess I'd like to know what role you see for Corp Counsel to take legal action to support that program.
Sure. It's something that I've talked to a number of people about. I haven't quite determined what the best role is. As I'm sure you're aware, we do have sort of limited resources, and unfortunately we also deal with a lot of defensive litigation that takes a lot of our time, and I think not just housing issues, but in general I think the Corporation Counsel's Office hasn't had the opportunity in a long time to really focus on offensive litigation, meaning what we can do proactively to improve quality of life for our citizens. It's something that I am definitely mindful of, and something I do want to explore once I get a better grasp of what our bandwidth is. It's been a month and I'm starting to get a sense of what that bandwidth is, and once I recognize that, I plan to prioritize, taking up offensive matters that help or make the most impact for our citizens.
Let me just ask a quick follow-up. I brought up housing, and you said, and other things, and not holding you to it, but are there other sort of areas that come to mind where you feel like, if there's the capacity, you would maybe like to see more offensive litigation?
Sure. I mean, I come from, I have a background in a whole bunch of different areas of practice, but there's also matters of collections matters, like money that's due to the city that's been on the books for years, but we just haven't had the opportunity to offensively pursue that. It's something I've been thinking about a lot more lately. Most recently, coming from the AG's office, I was doing a lot of environmental work, and I would hope to get the opportunity to explore what we can be doing proactively to push for cleaning up sites that are contaminated in the city of Hartford. I know obviously municipalities don't play a chief role in environmental legal issues, but I think nevertheless the Office of the Corporation Counsel can play a role, whether it's working with state or federal partners to try and address some of those properties, because we have a lot of them and they really hold back development, especially in a lot of our most underserved neighborhoods.
Thanks.
Thank you, Council President. Attorney Harding and I have spoken also, but a couple of things. First of all, what interested you in this specific role?
I think when the mayor approached me with this opportunity, I just, after spending a decade in various government sector litigation, both offensive and defensive, and then I'm spending a year at the governor's office as the Associate General Counsel, I really couldn't think of a better opportunity to take those experience and put them to use in my community. I mean, there is no better use of that skill set, quite frankly, to serve the city than as our Corporation Counsel. It's something I never would have imagined being confronted with, but I'm really excited for it. I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure.
No. Thank you for considering taking us on. And not all of us are attorneys here, but we have some very complex issues at times. How comfortable, or how would you take on, as the last 4 years has happened, explaining those to some of us who maybe don't know the legalese terminology?
The last 4 years, meaning?
Well, we've worked with a different corp counsel the last 4 years and had those things explained. How would you take on, explaining to us, not all of us, but complex legal issues in a way that's more lay terms?
Yeah, I think it's a critical lawyering skill, honestly. I think being able to talk to your client, honestly about risks and ask them to make a decision as to what's in the best interest of whoever the stakeholder is. I think you have to put it to that client in terms that make sense for them in order to make that assessment. So yeah, my goal is to give each and every one of you, and everyone is different in terms of their background experience or their tolerance for listening to legal conversation. And my goal certainly is whoever that council member is, or stakeholder is, or department head is, or person in the mayor's office or the mayor, is to make sure I'm presenting issues in a way that are best suited to that client, to that person, to sort of make the best decision they can as a policymaker.
Thank you very much, Attorney Harding. And fine, Council President.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilwoman?
Good evening, Attorney Harding. Thank you for agreeing to serve in this role. Some of my questions are probably overlapping others, but when I was staff in the town clerk's office, something I worked closely with was fire loss claims. And often, you know, we talked about recouping the funds that were expended to either house or, you know, secure buildings, et cetera. There was a lien process. And then relating to another question here is adding some teeth maybe or resources to the enforcement issues in the city and, you know, allowing for those to actually do their job. Do you have any innovative or creative ways that you could see putting these into play in the near future?
And I wasn't sure if I heard you correctly. You were talking about fire relocation matters?
That was just one of the examples, but even if there's like a property damage claim for accident, I know the public actually submits those type of claims to us, and I know that we incur losses for our own property damage. So, you know, looking to see what you would do about recouping, you know, the property damage loss funds.
Sure. Of city property that's damaged?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think is an opportunity when I mentioned sort of offensive litigation in terms of opportunity to recoup monies due to damage to city assets. Obviously, there's always a balancing act with, you know, securing a judgment and securing payment are two very different things. And, you know, I think I'm more than, as I mentioned, more than happy to look into opportunities to collect on debts that are owed to the city in the most high impact, but also equitable way possible, knowing that like not all of our citizens intend to cause harm to city assets, and we have to also be mindful of you know, how those costs affect, you know, working people. But yeah, I'm happy to explore all sorts of opportunities that we can recoup funds due to damaged assets in the city of Hartford. We do also deal with a lot of losses due to all sorts of claims, as you're aware, maybe anything from potholes to car accidents and that sort of thing. And it's tough. There's a much larger volume of it than I think I appreciated before getting here on January 2nd. But we are certainly up to the task and intend to, you know, defend the city and its purse aggressively.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rosado or Councilman Hernandez?
I'll go.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So, good evening, Council Harding. So I was reading the letter that the mayor sent over with the recommendation for your appointment, which states that Mr. Harding comes to the city with a strong background in government sector legal practices. He serves as an assistant attorney general to the state of Connecticut for a decade as a litigator. He has litigated matters in probate, state, and federal court in both offensive and defensive litigation. He has represented numerous state agencies in court, included but not limited to child support matters, various collection matters, environmental enforcement, and animal seizure cases. Mr. Harding most recently served as an associate general counsel to the Office of Governor Ned Lamont in the capacity he provided high-level legal counsel to the Office of the Governor. In that role, he provided legal guidance to various state agencies. So I don't have any questions for you. Reading this, knowing you, I know that you are going to do an excellent job as Corporation Counsel for the City of Hartford. With the vast experience that you have, you're going to move this city forward. So I am going to support your appointment this evening and just want to say congratulations. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilman Rosado. Councilman Hernandez?
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Attorney Hardy. I had a brief conversation with you a couple of weeks ago, and it was a very pleasant conversation. I was very impressed. I was able to relate a lot in the conversation with you, so that was a good start. I do have a question though. In the last year, we have, at least in my case, most of the cases that I've seen that we've seek guidance from corporate counsel have to do with workers' compensation matters, injury, bodily injury matters, things that are very complex and very hard for somebody that doesn't work in a hospital, that doesn't know the medical terms to understand. And I think this goes along with what Majority Leader Rossetti was speaking about. How comfortable are you providing guidance to the council for all these medical terms, all these claims, that workers' compensation claims? They're very complex to understand sometimes. And I was just kind of put that on, just to kind of see how comfortable you feel, kind of explaining that to us and having those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my comfort level, I'm very comfortable. I'm used to having to explain ongoing litigation to maybe an agency head or a department head, but even having to explain details to implementers within a state agency. So I definitely recognize that depending on who the policymaker is, whether it's the leader of a department or someone that implements those plans and policy, they're going to have different details that are important to them. And so I'm very comfortable being able to explain a lot of these complex issues to anyone from members of council all the way to individual members that work for any department here in the city of Hartford, to make sure they have the information that's best for their role, so that they can make a decision going forward.
Thank you. And the last question is, I looking at your resume, I know you worked quite a bit of time on the department's collection and also, recouping, losses, and also in the environmental division. Is there any one particular skill that you have that you think will be the most beneficial to the corporate counsel office? Is there one skill? I know collectively, you have all the you have all the check marks, but is there one particular skill that you feel will make a difference in your office?
It's tough. I think I like problem solving. I mean, I miss being in court. I do miss being a litigator. I'm not sure I'll be able to find time to get into court in this role, but I do miss that, and I love that work. But I do love solving problems that have a lasting impact. I think the goal, especially in the goal of litigation, is to learn from that litigation, win or lose, and I think the goal is to not find yourself in the exact same position again, ideally. And so I hope that I can bring that attitude to this role to help the city, because there are, as you mentioned previously, car accidents and certain claims that are very repetitive, and I hope that I can be part of the solution of how do we reduce those sorts of exposures overall, not just reduce dollar amounts on a case-by-case basis. So I hope that problem solving, passion for problem solving will help translate into long-term improvements and hopefully some of our legal exposure.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Hernandez. Is TJ on?
Yeah.
Oh, Councilman Clark?
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Attorney Harding, happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you, Councilman.
Wanted to know regarding the staff and Corporation Counsel. I know for decades, there's always quite a bit of outsourcing to other attorneys out there because of the capacity within the Corporation Counsel's office. And just want to know, do you continue to follow suit on that outsourcing method, or do you have plans to beef up Corporation Counsel's office with more attorneys?
Thank you, Councilman Clark, for the question. I've been here for a month, so it's, as I mentioned earlier, I'm still feeling out what the bandwidth is for the office. I do think that we do not have the resources today to replace all of our outside counsel. I also recognize that from time to time there will be very niche legal issues that will arise that will probably be best served by outside counsel that works in a very niche market. But I do also think we have a really talented office, and we have a lot of really great, talented attorneys in our office. We just probably don't have enough of them at the moment. In terms of what I think our specific needs are, I don't know yet. I've been here a month, and this is my confirmation hearing. I'm not here with an ask. But it's something that I will give thought to going forward. But yeah, I'd like to see us be able to take on more complex and interesting matters that come through the door if we have the resources and the bandwidth to do it. In addition to that, I need to continue my search to make sure that we have a deputy up and running soon as well. I recognize that that's also a component of that capacity. So it's something I'm thinking critically about. I don't think that outside counsel in general is something that can be eliminated simply by staffing out the office. But I think it's probably something that can be reduced.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And, regarding that ask, next month begins budget season. So I look forward to those asks coming before the council, because I'm sure that you probably will have some.
Control yourself, Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all the questions that I have.
Okay, Councilman Clark. Don't listen to Councilman Clark. You know, I mean, we have to really look at our revenues and how we can expend it. So Councilman Clark will give away everything if you allow him to. Thank you again for coming in front of us, Attorney Harding. We did meet, several weeks ago when, the mayor recommended you for this position. Put a couple of things on the table. You were able to also give me some information which I was looking for. One of the things the community, which I've heard from, and as I said to you before, is that having more minority outside counsel, and you were very welcoming in saying, having people come and, talk with you themselves. And so I have been recommending, anyone who would like to do business with the city was to reach out to you. So thank you very much for that offer on the table. My question will be starting with your 11 years at the state government. Mm-hmm. What would you bring from your 11, 12 years of service with the state that you believe will be an asset for the city of Hartford?
Yeah, I think one thing off the top that I think is very important on the government side that isn't always true on the private sector side is that the long-term impact of litigation. I mean, sometimes as a lawyer, when you're dealing with private parties, they may only have a factual issue only come up once, and their goal is to get a decision by any means. Whereas for us, a bad decision we could be stuck with a bad decision for years or decades that has long-term programmatic impact. And I think having that vision to understand how state agencies are affected by litigation or the outcome of litigation, for example, I think is not solely unique, but it's a more common part of the thought process when representing government entities and agencies.
Okay. One of the things over the last 4 years, which I've seen the Corporation Counsel office, when there's a large litigation settlement that comes before council, but what I don't see is the small claims, the fall or, the car pothole. Yep. One of the things I will ask of you is, maybe on a quarterly basis or whatever basis, let us know, because by charter, your corporation counsel can make the decision instead of those, I think it's up to 25,000, yep. Right? But we don't see those claims, so it'd be really interesting for me, over a period of time, sending a list of the claims that has been settled for that small amount. It's just information that it helps us, when we're out in the community or you don't know who I've settled a claim with in the city of Hartford. So that'd be really interesting for me. One of the things is I know you've only been here for a couple of weeks, And just to follow up regarding, I would always ask the nominees, you did make a positive, you kind of answered my question a little bit. I was going to ask you, two positive things in the short time you've been here that you've seen in the Corporation Counsel's office, and one issue that you think if you had a choice to, solve right away, what would that issue be?
I think certainly one positive thing is the staff. There are a lot of veteran staff, and even our younger attorneys are really eager and excited for the work that the city comes, the varied work. So I'm really excited about the staff. That's a huge positive. Another positive thing that I have seen is that I think our staff, and this is still related to staff, they're a part of this building and of city operations in a way that I was surprised and is great. I think that there are departments and folks, members of council, members of the mayor's office, that feel comfortable reaching out to them, and they've built a rapport throughout the city infrastructure that I think is that great that dialogue, those avenues of communication are already there. So those are two great things that I've noticed in the last week. That makes my life much easier. One thing that has been very challenging, and I think I've spoken I know I've spoken with you, Council President, about this, is we have some information technology upgrades that are needed, and this sort of goes back to your question before about being able to report to council on what's going on with the Office of Corporation Counsel. And part of that is finding sort of the next generation of case management software so that I can report out not only yearly as required, but on a regular basis or even on an as requested basis to the extent I can accurately. I think being able to drill down on granular details to find out, again, going back to the big picture of how do we mitigate litigation risk, but also long-term eliminate sorts and types of claims altogether, we have to sort of be able to search for and digest that information quickly and easily, and running reports that actually can say, search for department, right? So for this department, how many claims of this type did we have, right? Like, that's really helpful information to find out how we find processes that reduce that litigation risk in the future. And I think getting upgraded case management software is a challenge that would greatly benefit the productivity of our office, and hopefully that data will greatly reduce litigation risk in the future.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
So we can get a lot more reports out of the Corporation Counsel's office. My last question will be, you have lived in Hartford, over the last, I think,
15, 16 years?
Right? You're a great family man with children. How are you going to, with this role of Corporation Counsel, and this is not a, 40 hours a week job. I know you worked for Governor Lamont, and so I know it wasn't a 40 hours, So my question is, managing your personal and a professional time, which is really important for me as a Hartford resident, and wanting to see young people like yourself step up to the plate and actually, serve our city and serve our resident. And so asking you to make sure that you will have a great professional and personal time so you can continue to serve us for a very, very, very long time.
I will certainly do my best, Council President.
Great, thank you, sir. Second round of questions, anyone else? Councilman Mitchum.
Just to follow up on, I think it was your answer to Councilman Hernandez about sort of analyzing when we have some liability and some settlement, then offering some prescriptions for avoiding that in the future. Because I know that comes up often when we go in the back room to discuss settlements. Even if we're like, yes, this settlement makes sense, we should pay this, a lot of times we want to know, like, how do we avoid this? And do you think the office has the bandwidth not just to answer that question informally, but maybe to periodically give us some sort of a report that says, here's the policy problem, or, you know, here's the change that we see, even if it's a confidential report to us as clients, but something where, you know, because I think it comes at us sometimes, there's this case, there's that case, and we may miss the forest for the trees. But is that something that you think that on a regular basis your office could just sort of give us those kind of recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly try to. I mean, it's fun. Some of it's informal, right? And you don't even realize that that email you sent to flag an issue for someone in a department, you don't necessarily also think of it as a long-term policy decision. But to the extent that there are larger, thoughtful conversations about how do we mitigate this kind of exposure, yeah, I'd be happy to give the council my thoughts. And I think some of those things obviously can only happen with the recommendation and the support of this body in some cases.
Thanks. That's all I got.
Any?
Sure. It's not a question, more of a comment. I see, so you went to Boston College, Doug Flutie, but you were awarded the Sister Thea Bowman scholarship. Was it a scholarship?
It was not a scholarship. It was basically an award
Got it.
for academic performance for a few of my semesters.
That's awesome, and you got it for 3 years.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, there's significant work to make Sister Thea Bowman the first African-American saint in the Catholic Church, and I think it would be great if you write, you know, a letter to the diocese, like I have, to recognize her. I think it would be great. Yeah.
Nothing, no. it's
And
not
that was my
bribing.
last comment.
You're not bribing or anything, right?
No.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further question? Councilman Hernandez, Rosado, Councilman Clark, second round of questions?
I'm all set, Madam Chair.
Thank
I'm
you.
all set.
Great. I will entertain a motion.
I have a motion to recommend back to council the appointment of Attorney Harding.
Second.
Motion has been properly made in second to recommend Attorney Harding back to council as our corporation counsel. We vote on that? I know. This is a committee meeting, so nobody's going to be calling the roll. So can you just have a,
Well, you can say all in favor.
all in favor? Yeah, we can just do it and everybody else will all vote on it. Okay.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whoa. Wow, that's encouraging. Any abstention? Any no vote? Hearing none, I'm sorry, there should be any discussion. And hearing no discussion, the ayes have it. Congratulations, Attorney Harding. We will be recommending back to council favorably your recommendation for Corporation Council at our next council meeting. And thank you so very much. Congratulations, that's number one. And number two, thank you for giving us your time in wanting to serve the residents of the city of Hartford.
Certainly. Thank you all.
Thank you. Well, our second item on the agenda is a resolution from Mayor Aralumpalam confirming the appointment of Christopher R. Hayes to the position of Director of Department of Public Works. That was item 3.2 on the January 22nd, 2024 agenda. Welcome, Mr. Hayes. Thank you very much for joining us. As I said, what we're going to do is we'll give you a few minutes to make an opening statement. Each council person will have 2 questions, the first round, and then if there's more questions, we'll do a second round. And welcome. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. I would first like to thank Council President Surgeon as well as the other council people here for inviting me tonight for this meeting of the Council of the Whole. I feel fortunate that I have been able to speak with all of you prior to this and have met with many of you. Please know I am always available to discuss concerns or ideas you or residents may have for the department. I am excited to discuss my pending appointment as well as the Department of Public Works tonight. Before I go any further, I'd like to take a moment to thank Director Looney. Throughout December, Mr. Looney provided me with a thoughtful and comprehensive transition process. Not only were he and I able to discuss a wide range of topics spanning this large department, but he also encouraged DPW leadership to meet with me. The transition between administrations would not have been nearly as smooth if not for his generosity of time and expertise. After attending UConn for 3 years, I began my professional life in Hartford nearly 18 years ago when I started working for Riverfront Recapture, the well-known nonprofit in the city that manages the parks along the Connecticut River in Hartford and East Hartford. My first love was the Connecticut River, but quickly, under the guidance of Joe Marfucci, the longtime Hartford resident and CEO of Riverfront Recapture, I developed a deep love for Hartford. Having found my love for this city, I moved to Hartford so I could live in the city I was trying to help improve over 15 years ago. Nearly 5 years ago, I bought my first house in the Southwest neighborhood and have been a proud homeowner ever since. During my nearly 18 years at Riverfront, I honed skills from community engagement to daily operations and program management. As Director of Operations, I oversaw Riverfront's park operations, events, land and water-based programming, and volunteer departments. I have always considered the Riverfront to be Hartford's backyard, and as such, I was very proud to manage its day-to-day activities and operations. I see the Department of Public Works as the department that watches over the backyard, the front yard, and the house itself. During my short time at the Department of Public Works, I hope that residents have not seen any sort of disruption of services. The department has performed well over this month. We successfully handled the city's first significant snowfall in 2 years and a handful of other minor snow events, as well as significant rain events 2 nights after this first significant snowfall. Even though I was there with the DPW team for the duration of these events, the department was able to navigate the events successfully, not because of me, but because of the incredible men and women in our department. I'm a 15-year resident of Hartford. I am your neighbor. I am a homeowner. I care deeply about the quality of life issues that we all deal with every day. If confirmed, I will be an advocate for our residents, and I will be an advocate for our staff who daily solve seemingly unsolvable problems at the Department of Public Works. I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I'm going to start from my right this time. Councilwoman Bilodeau.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Hayes, for agreeing to serve in this role. As I've known you for quite some time, very happy to support you. And I know you'll be very dedicated to the department and the staff. Are there any focus areas in the short amount of time that you've been there that you feel that you would like to give more attention to?
Sure. For me, and I know many of us have spoken about this, street name signs, just directional signage, line striping,
Yes.
and potholes. Everything kind of around our roads, I think, are an issue that we all deal with daily and residents deal with and are legitimate concerns. And I think not only are they legitimate concerns, but I believe they're also safety concerns. We have continuing classes of fire and police cadets, and street name signage can be the difference of them responding to a call in a timely manner and not. So those are the areas that seem to me to be the most important to focus on in the short term.
Thank you.
Majority Leader Rossetti.
Thank you. I want to say something first, and I want to say it in a way that doesn't offend anybody. I'll just say it. So it really makes me so glad to know we're interviewing 2 people who are coming to this job and are actually Hartford residents. I really appreciate that. Acting Director Hayes, good evening. So nice to see you. You talked a lot about, and you know, we have your resume, as Councilman Rosado read about Attorney Hayes, Attorney Harding's, But what do you feel that you really bring to this position?
I believe I bring the lived experience of a longtime Hartford resident. I think sometimes if you aren't taking the roads in every day, if you aren't going to events around our city, not involved in the community, sometimes from one building and one office, you may not understand how a particular issue in a neighborhood can be all-consuming to that neighborhood, where it may not register with a greater department. And I have seen those sorts of situations and those sorts of frustrations in my neighborhood, and within DPW, I would act to open up those lines of communication a little more regularly than we have in the past. Because so often the information is there, it just isn't being disseminated. And just knowing that a problem is being worked on solves so many additional phone calls, and that is a major part. Now, I've served on multiple advisory commissions for the city on a volunteer basis, so I've been able to hear, especially when it comes to our environmental side and our park side, concerns of residents, but also the frustration as a resident feeling unable to get things accomplished. And so I think that perspective is something that I bring to the job that's a little different than what we've seen in the past.
Thank you. One more question.
You've got
Sure.
2 questions.
You know, Public Works is just really important department to me, as all the departments are, but it probably has, you know, some of the hardest working individuals in the city, but also just such a wide variety of positions. How will you manage and stay in touch with, you know, your staff, with such a wide variety in the office and outside of the office? How do you think you'd be able to accomplish that?
Sure, and I think there are a couple different pieces to the approach. The first piece is we're very fortunate at the City of Hartford and in DPW, at least from my observation thus far in an acting capacity. We have phenomenal deputy directors and superintendents and supervisors. And that leadership structure across all 12 of our departments is a critical role. We are meeting between supervisors, superintendents, and me as the director weekly to discuss hot topics. And that is the first step. Now, combine that with a need to get out and be talking not only to the superintendents, but to the staff in these departments. And personally, it's been in a rotational basis where once a week I am trying to meet with staff, gather their ideas, concerns, and try to see what's actually happening on the ground. Once we have more, once our park staff, for example, is out mowing lawns, I want to be able to be out there and see what our issues are at the height of our usage season, right? When we have the most people out in those parks. What challenges are coming up? What can we solve? And also, we do have or have had some issues, I'm told, of morale problems. And I think a lot of that can be solved with good conversations, creative planning, and maybe sometimes just offering someone a cold water or a Gatorade and 5 minutes out of the sun.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome, Madam. Councilman Thomas?
Hey, Hayes, congratulations on being the acting director so far, and you have answered all of my questions that I've asked beforehand, before this meeting. I do have maybe 1 or 2 that I'd like to ask you right
Please.
now. So Riverfront Recapture does a lot of youth development type of work, and I wanted to maybe know how DPW could maybe get involved with like internships, and how we could maybe have a youth development type of focus towards the work that DPW does.
Sure, that's something that has been considered in the past. It's something we plan to look at again. When it comes to youth development, there are a couple things I think we're seeing at DPW. One is there's a desperate need for the trades. We are having such problems and challenges finding qualified plumbers, electricians, and carpenters. And I believe that what we need is to engage the youth early on so that they are inspired to go to the technical schools to get the knowledge base they need to then come back and work in the city. This is a little off of your topic, but we're also seeing that there are many staff who come into DPW, get their introductory certifications and experience in Hartford, and then move on to other municipalities that are higher paying, almost a brain drain if you think to what Governor Rowland spoke of with Yukon 2000. That is an issue that we need to solve. I think part of solving that is, to your point, engaging youth who want to work and make their city, the city they live in, better. And I think that will keep them here longer and help us grow the skilled workforce in our department.
That's great. Yeah, I agree. I agree, and thank you so much. My second question is, you probably can't answer what would be your favorite large park, but do you have a favorite small park?
Park?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Don't
you
answer
can't
that, 'cause
you
you're
can't
gonna pick
answer
somebody's
favorite large park. That you cannot answer that.
Even the large one would, okay.
I have to say that all of my parks are
Amen.
favorite.
Good. That's a good answer.
Because otherwise,
You have to answer to someone.
well, no, and Councilman.
Oh, don't answer that because
No,
you're.
no, no, I'm not gonna answer that, but what I should say is this. I'm a park guy, right? I love parks, and I believe strongly that every resident should have access to a high-quality park. So in theory, if I'm doing my job right, every park is my favorite park.
That's right.
Oh,
like that answer.
that's a good answer.
Anyway,
Good job.
don't get me on my soapbox.
Councilman Thomas, what did you just do? Councilman Mitchum?
Thank you, Council President, and Mr. Hayes, congratulations, and thank you for being here. I have questions that I suspect a month in you won't be able to answer yet, but I want to sort of put them on your radar.
Please.
And if you have any ideas off the dome, great. Issues that I feel like residents are always coming to me with. One is, I'm going to say broadly, trash collection / dumping, because those things overlap. And you've talked a lot, you mentioned before the dissemination of information, and I feel like I see all the time that residents don't have or find the information about bulky pickup, right? And so things just sit there. And people wonder, they're like, well, I put it out at the curb and they came and they took the trash and they left this mattress or whatever it is. And then that overlaps with dumping in the sense that every neighborhood has that spot, which is somehow right in between this building's place and that building's, and the garbage piles up. And what's the answer?
You know, the answer is tough. I mean, but there are a couple pieces to it. I know that Janice Castle and the 311 office do an incredible job of trying to get the information out to residents. And I realize that sometimes the resident is not the homeowner. And there's that sort of disconnect too, where yearly or even less than yearly, we see resident turnover and a need for a re-education. Our sanitation team does a job that most people would not want to do, and honestly, I believe most people cannot do. The repetitive labor, the long hours, the any conditions is pretty inspiring when you get to talk to these men and women. But with that, I think there are a couple of things that I would highlight. One is we're not perfect. I went to an NRZ meeting. Someone was talking about bulky pickup, and they said, I keep calling the number, keep calling the number. Well, we found out that the number for about 3.5 weeks was going to a phone line that no longer was being used. We've corrected that. 311 also now is in a place where they can accept and put into the system bulky pickup items. We also have now, we've just hired a fourth, we now have 4 solid waste inspectors who have different quadrants of the city to drive around and look for items that are, you know, bulky pickup that were unregistered, illegal dumps, all of that. Now, 4 people may sound like a lot, it isn't. We are also up from 1 person about 5 or 6 years ago. So we're headed in the right direction, but there certainly needs to be more of that. I also know that the police department in C4 has been actively trying to help with placing cameras strategically to address known illegal dumping locations. And so our hope is that we can continue to partner with C4 and Sergeant Mastriani to catch those who are dumping in those locations. I do not believe that a lot of different individuals are coming in and dumping in the city. The information I've been given seems to trend more towards we have a few bad actors who are using our city as a dumping ground.
Yeah, I want to be, I wasn't trying to call out the trash collectors at all.
No.
My dad used to be a trash
You gave
collector.
me an opportunity to.
No, I was really thinking more like, are there sort of policy changes about collection? And you answered that well. I wanted to be clear, though, that it wasn't a complaint. My other question is about snow removal, and maybe this is less and less of a concern as time goes by, but not on the streets where I feel like the work has been good, but I have seen, and I feel like every time there's a snowstorm, I hear from folks about, you know, most folks go out and shovel, and then there's always sort of the delinquent, mostly business owners in my experience. And you know, I know there's a process of enforcement and reporting and all of that, but some cities just go out and do it, right? Like Rochester, for example, is similar in size. Other cities, I know there's a cost, but I wonder if you're interested in looking into that, if you've looked into it as an alternative, just to say, look, we're just going to do it.
Sure. The city that I've had some initial conversations with is Syracuse, New York, and because they are a street with, a city with narrow streets and much more snow than we have, similar to Rochester. And I haven't talked to them about the topic of clearing businesses and delinquent properties. I think part of the challenge for us is our sidewalk crews. We have 5 crews throughout the city, 2 in the north, 2 in the south, and 1 in the central district. And they are tasked with clearing every city-owned property, including our vacant lots. And the amount of time it takes to clear all of these sidewalks, these men and women all have normal DPW jobs. So if they complete that work at 6 a.m., at 7 a.m., they're back to the Parks Department. They're back to the Facilities Department. And with that, I'm not sure at this moment, as we're currently structured, if we have the capacity to then go back out and shovel these driveways. Our blight remediation team that tends to handle a lot of these smaller nuisance issues as well as larger cleanups is only a crew of 10 individuals. So I think, could we? Yes, but I think more research needs to be done. I'll be happy to look into that for you.
Appreciate that. I would say as budget time rolls around, it might be useful for us, even if the final budget proposal doesn't have anything aimed at that. If you find out, like, here's what it would cost City Council to have this level of snow removal or different garbage removal, I think those things are useful for us as we go through our budget process. But I appreciate that you've already done a bunch of research on this.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hernandez?
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Mr. Hayes. So in the last couple of months, I've had many conversations with you, and right now, I mean, all my questions were all taken already. But I will share this, and then hopefully I'll come up with a question towards the end. Some people may say that you were baptized by fire. I think in your case you were baptized by ice because you had to deal with the snowfall. I want to say about a week into being acting director, something like that.
That's correct.
But it was very quickly. And during that day, I remember that I spent 2 hours talking to your staff at the yard as they were getting ready to get the dump trucks ready. I spoke to many of the drivers, many of the folks there. You were very gracious and kind of gave me a little bit of a tour. And I felt a lot of positive energy. I felt a lot of optimism. Everybody was like excited and they were ready to go. So it was a great atmosphere. And I think that earlier you spoke a little bit about the morale of the staff. So I want to kind of give you an opportunity to go a little bit deeper on that and talk to me about that, your efforts to improve and to sustain positive morale, among the staff. Because what I saw that day was very impressive. The commitment of the staff was beyond belief. How do you as a leader sustain that kind of optimism and energy, throughout the year? Because this is a hard job. The DPW staff, they are hard workers, and they need that kind of leadership. Can you talk to me a little bit about your thinking behind that?
Absolutely. And I would like to just clarify one thing. I think you confused my enthusiasm to see you with me running towards you with a safety vest because you're in a black jacket at night in a heavy equipment yard.
I failed. I failed my first test. I admit.
But to answer your question, I think what it comes down to is this. What will sustain morale is the staff being able to have input into how things are done so that we can be creative and try to find the most efficient solutions instead of the solution that makes the most sense in a book. I hope to maintain morale by being out there. I have been a person who prefers to be out in the field seeing what's going on so I can speak to it instead of it being reported back to me. And quite honestly, what will also improve morale is equipment and investment, something that unfortunately has been lacking because of the economic conditions that this city faces. But when a crew from our BRT, our blight remediation team, finishes a large illegal dump in the middle of the summer and they go back to their truck and their truck doesn't have air conditioning anymore because it's a 17-year-old truck, that will drain someone's morale pretty quickly. When you are trying to mow a field and you haven't received a new mower in your division in 7 or 8 years, and it keeps breaking, those frustrations will degrade morale. So a lot of what I have heard from staff as I talk to them and pull them aside in these one-on-one moments is give us the equipment so that we can do our jobs well and feel valued.
I want to give you some compliment because you've been extremely strategic in this answer, right? You kind of talked about the morale, but there's an ask, behind all of this. So that's very strategic. So I appreciate that. And with budget season coming up, I think that this is a great conversation. I've as you know, I've already started some of those conversations with the, with one of your staff that you allowed me, that you kind of like linked me to have these conversations. So I appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. I don't think I have any other questions. I think this kind of like, covers, the area that I wanted to kind of touch base. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hernandez. Councilman Rosado. Councilman Rosado. Okay. Maybe she's gone? Okay. Councilman Clark.
Good evening, Mr. Director, and congrats on your nomination.
Thank you.
during the budget process. They had 90-day temps, and they would be people in the community that they would bring on board, and those that might be just as involved, and which will provide them with the opportunity to understand public works, start them as a sanitation worker, but create a pathway to employment through the city of Hartford. Would you entertain plans or a strategic approach to relaunch that initiative in public works under your leadership?
I believe the first portion of your question was cut off, and I didn't hear the initiative.
I'm sorry. There is, some years ago, there were 90-day temps that the Department of Public Works would employ. And they would be members from the community, and also too, individuals that are justice involved, formerly incarcerated, which provide them opportunities of pathway to employment by starting them off as a sanitation worker. And then after that 90 days, some that successfully completed those 90 days, they actually would open up an opportunity for them to be hired as a full-time employee. Is that something that you would entertain under your leadership in the immediate future?
It is something that we are still doing. It's just packaged differently. Now we have what are called seasonal employees, and through the coming on in the seasonal ranks, those who perform well are then given the opportunity to move into a maintainer one full-time probationary job. So it's something similar. It's no longer 90 days. Seasonal gives us more flexibility for whatever our needs may be as a department, but also to give them, if they need more time to grow, we can take them on for a full season instead of just 3 months.
Perfect. Didn't know that it was still going on, but thank you for that update. Also, too, I've been a fan of, I think you and I spoke about this before, traffic calming measures, which is an initiative that I've been advocating for and allocating some monies from through the budget process to Public Works. Is that something within the plans too regarding making our streets in the city of Hartford more safe as it comes to vehicular traffic?
Absolutely. We continue to try to add new traffic calming measures and try different pilots in every corner of the city. And we, I'm told, have done some projects that now suburbs are copying, that we were the first in the region to do those when we speak with our consultants. But between Gracie over in DDS and Sebastian and Frank in DPW, a lot of work is going on around traffic calming, and we have no intent to stop that. There are business cases in the budget currently to increase our traffic calming budget. So we were very supportive of that. And then outside of just traffic calming, our engineering staff is looking at any major road project we do now. And traffic calming can be as much as going from 4 lanes of traffic, right, to a single lane in each direction, a center turn lane, and a bike lane on either side. So those measures are being looked at in a number of places. Most recently, it would be the roundabout that is finishing design at New Britain Avenue and White Street. They are currently looking at just doing a road diet, if you will, to produce those traffic calming measures. So there is no plan from DPW's perspective under my leadership, if I'm fortunate enough to continue, to stop our traffic calming measures.
Thank you very much for those answers. I do look forward to working with you on some of these because there are some areas where I think that they need some immediate attention, but we can talk about that later. And as I mentioned to your colleague before you sat down, I look forward to your budget presentation next month because I'm quite sure that you will have some asks before the council. So congratulations, and that concludes my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Clark. Again, Mr. Hayes, welcome. We met a couple of times before you were nominated, and I think I gave you a long laundry list of things which I wanted, should you be successful in getting the job permanently to address. But most important on that list, and as you talk about seasonal work, and, we're hopefully winter is ending, we won't have any more snowstorms. We under Councilwoman Rosado leadership last term, we put $1 million into sidewalk repairs. Do not want to lose that money, and really would love to see sidewalk starting as soon as we can, whenever, I don't know, when it gets warm, I guess. Don't know what time of year that begins. And so that is one of the priorities. Really would like to see, to start taking a look at. Utilizing Councilman Clark and Councilman Thomas, we talked about training program. As you talked about training program, I believe you only have one contractor that does sidewalks. Here is a great opportunity, to have our minority business person in Hartford, undertake and try to get that monies out into the community. One of the most hurtful thing for running for re-election a couple months ago is person wouldn't vote just because her name is on the list for sidewalks for the last 2 or 3 years. So, we don't want to see that happen to us as we go forward. So I'm really asking if you could really, in the next couple of months, take a look at that, and in your busy schedule, trying to get that training program implemented. And that $1 million was last year's budget. So, I'm sure you're going to add some more monies with this upcoming budget, but want to make sure we spend that $1 million and not include it or lose it for this upcoming budget year. As you made your presentation, you mentioned a couple really great ideas that you would like to see implemented. You mentioned one of the questions I always ask nominees is, what are the 2 greatest things you've seen in your short term with us, and what are the challenge? Give me 2 great things you've seen and 1 challenge that you would like to address as soon as possible.
And before I do that, I would just like to highlight we only have 1 sidewalk contractor. You're completely correct. We have only one of a lot of our on-call contractors, and that is something I think we need to address quickly, because we need to have a deep enough bench to be able to address problems for our residents in a timely manner. And if we are going to try to solve all the city's sidewalk problems, or all that the budget will allow with 1 contractor, that list is only going to get longer.
Exactly.
So I'm very much aware of how small our list of contractors is right now, and we are looking at ways to grow that list, and where possible, use Hartford-owned businesses and residing businesses.
And, with the youth training program, as Councilman Thomas, would like to work with you and your department to get something like that started.
So I was a little disappointed that I went second, because I knew that Acting Corporation Counsel Harding would say the #1 thing that was a great thing for his department was his staff, because I wanted to say it before he did.
Okay.
That is certainly one for me. Coming into the job, sitting in NRZ meetings, you hear a lot of frustrated people, and I made reference to that earlier. I will tell you this, people would not be nearly as frustrated if they hung out down at 40 Jennings and saw the amount of effort and enthusiasm that went into getting ready for that snowstorm. Or some of these toolbox meetings that are happening in our facility departments in the morning. Our staff, they are working hard, and like I said before, need the tools to do the job better. The other thing that was exciting to me is to see not only, it's two-part. One part, the department is in a good place. I'm very fortunate to be walking in after former Director Mike Looney, who had done a lot of good things and had put the department in a place where it could continue to move forward. And utilizing his launching pad, there are a number of technological things that we're getting ready to try and working through negotiations with the union and procurement and other parts of the city. The one I would highlight is we are talking to a European company called Violytics, and what they do is they use a camera that faces out the windshield of a DPW vehicle, and through a computer program, it identifies potholes, faded street signs, sunken manhole covers, any dangerous street issues. And they provide you with a button that goes on the steering wheel that if you click it, you can leave a voice memo, and it puts a pin in that location on a GPS map and will say, broken curb, south side, and that will be saved. So these items where we're thinking of installing them is in our street sweepers, because they go to every corner of the street. And over time, we don't have to now rely on 311, but we'll be able to rely on this system as another way to find dangerous and problematic road conditions or signs to more quickly address problems before they get big. That technology, if used properly, would also be able to tell through GPS if it was a pothole or if it was a road repair made by a utility that had failed. And it would flag what utility it was. And so now our staff has the role of now contacting that utility. We can cut down our inspections, and we now have a running list that in theory would be even more accurate than the 311 list. So those are the two things I think are exciting and interesting and surprising. On the other side of things, and I've made reference to it before, the condition of our fleet is a great concern of mine coming in. We have not been able to turn over the fleet as a municipality should. We're spending more and more year after year on maintaining our heavy dump trucks and our lawnmowers and our light trucks, and those costs are adding up and greatly impacting the budget, and it's also impacting the reliability of our fleet. We have 34 large dump trucks, heavy dump trucks that plow snow. We have 34 of them. We require 30 for our operation. 92% of those are currently outside of the municipal standard useful life. And that useful life would be the original cost of the piece of equipment. Once you have exceeded 40% of the original cost in repair, that vehicle should be auctioned off and replaced, because they're in such a corrosive environment that the road salt is eating away at the frame. And even as you do mechanical repairs, the lifespan of the truck is continuing to degrade. We have multiple of these heavy dump trucks that have over 110% of their original purchase cost put into them in repair. And at some point, we'll no longer be able to function on the road. But it is impacting the reliability when we have such a startling number like 92% that are past that useful life. And that useful life number would be somewhere between 8 and 10 years within a fleet. And we're still running 2006 heavy dump trucks daily.
Well, I'm sure we're going to hear all about the budget process. So bring all that information with you when we go through the budget process. And a list of all those, 32 trucks and how old they are. That'd be interesting to talk about during the budget time. Your 18 years with Riverfront, that is like, you know, as you look at the millenniums and the time where people work with one company, those days, you don't see that anymore. So working with Riverfront for 18 years, what was great about working for that company that you stayed with them for 18 years?
Well, first I should say, I always thought I was gonna stay there for 50 years. So
Okay.
it's that you know, life changes. But for me, when I first arrived, it was a very special experience because it set my life on a new path, and that was one of taking care of an incredible park system, engaging with youth. I mean, it was just so exciting, and at that point, I said, there's nothing else I want to do than try to make this park system better. And then as I referenced in my opening remarks, then Joe Marfuji comes in the picture and becomes a mentor, and I just want to make the city better. And I always felt that I was making the city better by helping improve our little park system, our backyard of the city. So it was all of the varied experiences there that were most rewarding. Finishing a flood cleanup was always great when you got to reopen a park safely. The people were always wonderful. Residents and folks who came out of town, because they'd come down to this park system, they say, we never knew this was here. And this is what was so wonderful about it. And to me, it always seemed like a miniature version of the overall city, right? It was people come in, they recreate, they enjoy themselves. They go, this isn't what we heard on the news, and then they head out. And so I wouldn't have been there that long if it wasn't so rewarding and kind of a daily driver for me.
So I hope you take that enthusiasm to this new position as the Director of Public Works.
That's the plan.
Wonderful. Yeah. Councilman Thomas had started talking about the Boston College. And on your resume, I didn't see your educational background there. Did we leave it off?
Sure. No, I completed 3 years at the University of Connecticut, but I did not receive a degree. I came to Riverfront and got caught up in the mission and just started working my tail off there.
Well, there's nothing wrong with hard work, you know, and experience. You know, one of the greatest things everybody tells me over the years is that you may have the degree, but if you don't have the experience to go along with it, it does not make any sense. You know, so all your hard work of 18 years with the Riverfront, I remember when I spoke with you, you said you are a, what's the word I believe you use? Because we had just lost our, the young, arborist.
Yes.
Yes, because we just lost our arborist for the city. How are you doing with that?
Sure. We received 3 qualified candidates who one interviewed today and the other 2 are interviewing on Wednesday. So we will be planning to make an offer Thursday. We've included the Tree Advisory Commission in the interview process. So we're excited.
Oh, good idea.
We're excited to bring someone on board to take the baton from all the great work that Heather Dion did and move it forward.
Oh, excellent.
And we have a $6 million grant from the USDA that is waiting for a new city forester to come in and run with. So it's an exciting time in our forestry division.
Well, I'm looking forward to when you hire someone, because certainly would love to talk with them regarding utilizing some of those funds with these old trees we have in the city and what are we going to do with them.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so very much for answering my question. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the time you actually spent with me one-on-one, and my laundry list of, items I gave you. But you have time to get it accomplished. You have a little bit of time. So I know it's a long learning curve, and you walked in after what, 1 week, and you walked right into a snowstorm. And I want, so Councilman Hernandez and myself went up to the Public Works, the yard, and I learned all about the different color salt. That was quite interesting, learning about the different color salt. And I didn't know the difference. I see all the salt in the ground, and I didn't know that the green one is different from the regular white one and why you put it down. So thank you for that education, and really thank you for explaining that, because it didn't make any sense to me. But it makes sense now, so thank you.
Absolutely.
I will entertain a motion.
I move to send the nomination back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Wonderful. So we have a, no, we got a wonderful, all these seconds. Mr. Town Clerk?
It's a committee, say all in favor.
I know. No, we have to make sure we say that the motion has been properly made and seconded. No discussion, it's a committee. Yeah, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, great, thank you. Congratulations, and welcome to the city permanently. And this resolution, the vote will be sent back to the city council with a favorable recommendation. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So that concludes our committee of a whole, and the two nominees that we interviewed for the position of Public Works and Corporation Counsel. The motion to adjourn the meeting? So do, yep, meeting's been adjourned. It's a committee meeting.